Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, boxing and MMA fans from around the world. Introducing from Bassett, California, the third man in the ring, Popeye Ray.
Hey, welcome to Third Man in the Ring. I'm your host, Popeye Ray. Today we have a great guest, the lead inspector of California. This guy, do you boxing fan and MMA fans, do you ever wonder who's this guy walking with the fighter? Who's this guy that jumps into the cage, jumps into the ring? Well, today I know him as Chuy. His name is Jesus. I'm not gonna say his last name because I don't want to butcher it. I don't want him to kick my butt. He's a lot bigger than me. But I just want you to give a warm welcome to Chuy, our lead inspector of California. Come on in, Chuy.
Hey, how's it going?
Thank you for coming on, man. Appreciate you, brother.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, and this is his man cave, guys. So this is where he comes and chills out and blases and watches the fights. So Chuy, let's tell the fans a little bit about how you grew up, where you grew up, you know.
Well, I grew up in Colton, California. It's
IE boy.
Inland Empire. I grew on the south side of Colton, but towards the end where we were pretty much connected to the Santa Ana River. The last old house that my dad bought when he came, when he came from Mexico, pretty much, he bought that house.
And real quick, Chuy's father passed away, and you know, may he rest in peace. But like Chuy says, I am my father, you know, and this is him behind us, if you guys want to see. But a great man, and go ahead, Chuy, I'm sorry.
So I grew up in Colton, went to Colton High School, graduated in class of 97.
What are they, the Bees?
The Yellow Jackets. Don't get it confused.
Jacket, yeah, I was just teasing, bro. I was teasing.
Man, already?
There's the dummy button.
I didn't think I was going to use it right away.
Right away. Chin checked me on that.
Right away. So played baseball my whole time I was in high school. I never did boxing. I never did any type of martial art. And grew up in a nice little, older community of Colton. It's really traditional.
Yeah, it's been around a while.
Yeah, everybody that lives here, they know each other. We go to the supermarket and we always run into somebody. And but it's a cool community. We're really, really unified. We always do community events together. Everybody knows each other, and it's a good community to live in. We're out here just east of LA.
I remember the Pop Warner here. It was really tight knit.
Yeah, it's still there. Yeah. It's still there. They really involved with the football program here in Colton. It's more that's a sport that kind of made Colton famous. I think at one point they had like 3 players from Colton High School go to the NFL all at once in the same year. So it was a good exposure for our school.
Go Colton, huh?
Yeah, and grew up in just a regular Mexican home.
Brothers, sisters?
I got 3 sisters. I'm the only boy, or male.
Dad must be proud because you're a big boy.
Yeah. And like I said, played baseball my whole since I was a kid. Yeah. Never involved in boxing, never involved in MMA. But I did grow up in a Mexican home where I didn't learn English till I was probably like in 3rd grade. So Spanish was my first language. English came at a later date. My parents came here from Mexico, and illegally at the time, but they were able to do what was necessary to get their documents and be legal here. And this is where, they started their family. They wanted a better opportunity for us. So they worked really hard, to give us a roof over our head and to give us a good education.
Gave you a good work ethic. So
yes.
That explains a lot of you being our lead inspector.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Props to Dad, and Mom.
And that's one of the biggest gifts I received from my parents, because not only from my dad, but from my mom as well. Good work ethic. I am probably one of the only ones in the commission that wasn't involved with law enforcement or that wasn't involved with any other. I honestly, I didn't even go to college. Everything that I know that I do, I got it from just working hard. I did construction my whole life. So I put that work ethic into what I do with the commission. I think it's worked out so far.
Hey, and it has, guys. I know if you visualize Chuy right now, he's the guy that's always in the cage first, always in the ring first. On a personal note, my Neri Crazy 8 fight just 3 weeks ago, the guys were fighting, man, after the bell, and I turned around to try to grab him. Chuy was in there already, man. Chuy was in there.
Yeah, and I created that technique because for the same reason.
Yeah.
A lot of times I see that the fighters still continue to fight a little bit after the bell rings. So I tend to try to get in there. Of course, always watching my back. I want to make sure that I always watch my back of what's going on behind me before I jump in. So I created that technique so that we can get in there to assist, the officials, the referees, especially in a hard fight like that, where it's just nonstop action.
How did you get into the game? Well, how did that start? Was it just checking it out like, yeah, I can do that, or I can do it better, or what?
You know what? I was just a big fan of boxing, a big fan of MMA. When I was a kid growing up, we had a big property in our house, and my dad would always love to watch the Julio Cesar Chavez fights, Terrible Morales.
That's my era too, yeah.
The Marco Antonio Barrera. And we would host parties at our house all the time. And my dad would put the fights, and sometimes our yard was so big that sometimes we had people there that I didn't even know who they were. They would just be driving by, and at that time when Chavez and Barrera and Pacquiao and Morales were fighting, boxing was really popular. And what my dad would do is put the big TV outside, and we would just have the fights there. Everybody would bring. Yeah. My dad would host. I remember one time, and I'm not kidding, there was people sitting on top of our roof watching the fight because I think it was a big fight, but I can't remember. I think it was the Macho Camacho Julio Cesar Chavez fight, and it was because it was hyped up really, really good. And I remember people that I didn't even know were there watching the fight, and they would just come with their ice chest and just sit in our yard, because we had a huge yard. I mean, we had maybe half an acre, so a lot of people fit. And my dad was like, "Just come in, as long as you don't give us no trouble, just come in." And that's how I became a big fan of boxing. And
MMA about that time was
MMA was more of the tournaments where I believe UFC was doing like those tournaments where you could see one big old dude fighting a smaller dude, and it wasn't that popular in my era and as a kid in the early 90s. But boxing was really popular, and I remember seeing the ads coming in on TV all the time, and I would look forward to seeing these fights. Oscar De La Hoya, Fernando Vargas era.
Yeah.
So like I remember as a kid just saying, "Wow, man, these guys are great," and not even knowing that half of these fighters that were on TV fighting were close to my age. And that was now that I've worked with them, I see them. I'm like, I was a kid, but I was really not a kid because these guys were almost the same age. So once I got older, I continued playing baseball, through high school. And then I also played weekend baseball, like in a Mexican league that they call it.
Yeah.
And I remember I loved it. I loved playing baseball. And one day I got hurt. And I was like, man, I did something with my knee. I tweaked it and it wasn't the same no more. And I remember my wife telling me, look, you don't get paid to play on these little, leagues. You have to pay to play. What are you doing? You're going to get hurt. Then what? What are we going to do? There goes your career. And what I was doing at the time, I've always done construction. So one of my good friends that I've known for many, many years, Fernando Villarruel, he's a professional judge.
Yeah.
And
we got him on. We got him coming up too. He's a judge. Yeah.
Yeah. Me and him have been friends for many, many years. He said, look, he says, I know you love boxing. He says, I love the way that you are, because we worked together at the time. We worked for a company together, so he knew how I was, as a supervisor and
conducted yourself.
Conducted myself. He says, the way you are, you would fit in perfect working with the commission as an inspector. And I was like, an inspector?
Was he right on that one?
Oh, he was right. He was right on that one? He was right. He says, look, he says, I'll introduce you to some people and but you got to put your work in. So, I was introduced to Mark Raylier, who is my chief inspector, my mentor.
Mark's coming up too.
Yeah, guys. He's an awesome dude. He taught me everything I know about the commission itself. But
Tough boss at times.
Tough boss. Oh, really tough. I bet. You know what? I appreciate it because if it wasn't for the things that he's taught me, he's made me a better inspector. And to be honest with you, I feel like he's the one that created me.
Yeah.
He molded me. Yeah. And I appreciate that because he gave me the opportunity that a lot of people don't get. So when
he speaks well of you too as well.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. So what I did that other inspectors sometimes don't do is I started working with the amateurs. So I worked a little bit with the USA Boxing, and then I worked a lot with Camel, which was mixed martial arts amateur division for California. And I did a lot of events, and I learned how to do the work itself. Because I thought, oh, these guys just come out on TV, walking out the fighters. That's easy.
Looking good, huh?
Just looking sharp. Some camera time. But then when I started doing the work, I was like, wow, this is work. This is hard work.
Yeah.
It ain't easy. So I started doing the amateur, and I did several events, and I just started enjoying it. And the more I did it, because like I said, I was playing baseball, so it was kind of to replace what I was doing with baseball. But once I started getting more into it, I was like, man, I'm in love. I'm in love with the sport. I'm in love with the work.
Yeah.
And it just took off from there.
That's awesome, bro. That's awesome. So hey, I got some questions for you.
Let's do it.
Don't mind.
No, let's do it.
So what is your job as an inspector and your fights that come to mind? What's the, run it to the fans, Chuy, what really is your job? Like, for instance, if somebody was applying to be an inspector, what you're going to tell them what your job is.
So
tell the fans, let them know.
Our main purpose as inspectors is the health and safety of the fighters. So a lot of people, we're like the background actor, where we just come out in the bag. Everybody, of course, yourself as a referee, you're one of the highlights of the fight. We do more than just be in the background. Everybody thinks we're security guards for the fighters, or we're security guards of some sort for the event center wherever we're at. But what we do is we make sure that these fighters are capable of fighting the day of their fight.
Yeah.
And when I say that is, a couple weeks ahead of time, we have files that we get from the state, from Sacramento.
Yeah.
Pretty much like a checkoff list of medicals that they have to complete, drug testing. We do all the licensing, not only for the fighters, but we also do your licensing. Whenever you apply as an official, it has to go through us inspectors. We have to, pretty much sign your license to fight here or to become an official in California, and to become a fighter, to become a trainer, to become we call them chief seconds, cut man. They all have to have a license here, including managers, promoters. Everybody has to have a license.
And that of, Chuy, is California probably the toughest, the tightest ship? From what I hear, they are.
If you get licensed here in California, it's like getting licensed all over the world, because we do have some of the strictest regulations.
Yeah.
And we are strict in itself. We're not just have the strictest, but we also are the strict. We enforce it to the T. And
real quick, even when I'm giving instructions, Chuy's in the corner there, Chuy's in the dressing room, I gotta watch my P's and Q's. We might be friends, but I know when it's time to work, he's the boss. Because he's the boss of me as well. I gotta do my instructions right. I gotta check my mouthpieces, my growing protector. But yeah, go ahead, Chuy.
And with that said, I'm going to piggyback on your comment right now about being friends. Yeah, we're all friends as a group with the commission. We're really tight, but we know our limits on how and when to enforce certain stuff.
Yeah.
There's been some times where I had to put, referees or judges on their spot because they're doing something they're not supposed to, or it makes it look
happen.
Optics, the optics of it, and
better him than me.
But I in addition to, of course, doing all the licensing, I translate a lot for the commission.
For me,
I
speak English.
Well, not just for the instructions, but also I do a lot of managerial contract signings. So I get a lot of phone calls, and we do Zoom calls on signing for people from Mexico, from Argentina. I've done people in Spain. So they need a translator. So I'm the official translator for them. So we do all that. We do weight checks when the fighter's about to fight. We want to make sure that they're going to be at weight before their fight. So
and if you fans seen the Andy Foster, Andy holds these guys accountable for that weight stuff, man. We're hard on the weight, aren't we?
For sure. So we do all the paperwork for an event to happen.
So real quick, Chuy, let me interrupt you on that. What exactly if my son, for instance, weighs in the day of the night before the fight at 135, how far can he go up the next day?
So it's 10%. So and he can go higher, but what's going to happen if he goes too high? There's a limits. So there's a threshold that he has to be in, and if he's above that, then there's a possibility that the fight can get scratched.
Yeah.
Thank you to HDC Construction in Ontario, California. They're a national leader in commercial construction with a proven track record of expertise in cold storage solutions and epoxy flooring. Their team works closely with you to efficiently meet all compliance standards while maintaining budget commitments and completing projects on time. HDC Construction works with Fortune 500 companies and small businesses throughout the country in the areas of steel stud framing, refrigeration panels, dock doors, comprehensive drain systems, fire sprinklers, block walls, and much more. For bids, quotes, or a free consultation, call 909-626-0214 or visit their website at www.hdconstruction.com. Ralph Sarabia and his wife Jody Sarabia are the founders of Putazos. They started Putazos to reach the veteran community who is currently losing 22 vets a day to suicide. Ralph and his unit, 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines, lost over 15 guys while serving in Iraq. He wanted to share with you that whether you fight physical or mental battles, it ain't over yet. With that said, Putazos has developed high-end boxing gloves that have been approved by State Athletic Commission to be in pro fights. If you want a boxing glove that's inspired by patriotism and is battle-tested, check them out at putazosfightapparel.com. And just keep in mind that a portion of Putazos proceeds will go to the Semper Fi Fund, which helps wounded warriors. Also, we want to give another shout out to Valley Mission Builders. Valley Mission Builders is a general building company with over 3 generations of construction experience. They specialize in all phases of home construction, new home building, remodeling, room additions, and ADU and guest units. They can assist with planning and designing to complete construction. They service the greater Los Angeles area and Ventura counties, including the San Fernando Valley. Give Valley Mission Builders a call for a free consultation.
He can be above it, but if it's too much, like I said, the fight might get scratched. But if he's just a little bit over, he's going to be recommended to fight at a different weight class on his next fight.
Yeah.
So he not necessarily would get suspended to fight that fight, but he's going to be recommended. And Andy Foster, our executive officer, he's the one that makes those decisions. But we have to make sure that when we're doing an event, we do the weigh-in, and then we do the day after the weigh-in. So we make sure when they walk into the arena that they weigh again, and that's where we get that percentage. So we got to make sure that they're always, at least close to the 10%. But it's pretty. I mean, we keep track of everything. We keep track of all their safety equipment, mouthpiece, their trunks, their shoes. We make sure that when they go to the ring, that we've covered all the safety bases, not only with the fighter, but with the cut man. We check all their medicines, their cut medicines that they use. I mean, we're on it. We got to make sure that we never leave the fighters alone with their gloves.
They follow them.
Or if they got to go to the bathroom, we follow them. We have to be there because we want to make sure that there's no advantage to the other to the fighter when he goes into the ring. We want to make sure that we just pretty much enforce all the rules and regulations. Yeah. But at the same time, we want to make sure we do it with respect.
Yeah.
So
But at the same time, I've seen you lay down the law with some.
Sometimes you have to, and you know what? Sometimes, I mean, you can say it laying down the law, but sometimes there's what I call it's they come from different countries.
Yeah.
So sometimes they do things different in their countries. Yeah. I mean, I've heard stories that sometimes fighters show up with their hands already wrapped in other countries. Yeah. So it's just a a confusion sometimes with the way we do things. We require a certain amount of, tape. We require a certain amount of gauze. And it has to be, put in a certain way. And if it's not done that way, we'll make them take it off and start all over.
Yeah. So then you obviously, with that said, you obviously know if it's a California fighter, you know the rules, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? It's like I said, if it's a California fighter, they should know they need 2 pro-fitted mouthpieces. They need to have their cup. They need to have, all the gear to fight. Yeah. And believe it or not, we still get some people that, some fighters that show up with nothing. And there's the promoters scrambling to find a mouthpiece for them. They're going down to Big Five and get one for them. It happens.
Yeah.
But, it's not perfect. If an event is perfect, it's weird. But, normally you have something happen that you have to, make adjustments.
So with that, Chuy, tell the fans, because I've gotten a couple emails that said, hey, how can I become an inspector? If you had to tell, the regular guy, like, hey, I want to be an inspector, how would you pitch that to him?
It would be, you have to have experience in the sport. You have to have somewhat of an experience in some type of enforcing. Mark is the one that kind of does the screening on who becomes an inspector, and he finds things about people that are good. So, like myself, I was never involved in law enforcement, but I worked construction my whole life, and I worked with different types of trades. So I knew different people, how to work with different people. Believe it or not, I think especially with boxing, it helped me a lot growing up in a Mexican home. Yeah. Because, boxing is a Mexican sport. It's diehard. Yeah. And when you talk to people, you go down to, they can relate with you and they feel comfortable with you to get things done. Yeah. So that it makes it easier so that I don't have to bring down the law, like you said.
So you would have to, can I sum it up to they got to have some kind of leadership skills?
Leadership skills, some type of knowledge with the sport.
With the sport.
Like I said, I got lucky because I was involved in sports itself. Yeah. So I kind of knew, how to conduct myself in a sport. But it's an application that they got to fill out with the state whenever they're ready to apply and whenever they have openings. And volunteering, I think, is a good way to start.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere. Huh?
Yeah, and I volunteered for 2.5 years before I was able to get hired as an employee because we're state employees.
Yes,
we work for the state of California.
We're not.
Yeah, they're officials. They get licensed to be an official.
Doesn't mean you'll be.
Exactly. Yeah. They can get their license and here in California, I'm probably not working an event for a long time. Yeah. We're state employees, so we. It's a hard position to get into, but if volunteering, being involved in the sport itself, like I said, working in the amateur divisions like I did, just learning the ropes, just learning the rules, just learning everything about, what it has to do with the sport of MMA and boxing.
And from your eyes, what do you think's harder, the MMA or the boxing, or they both have their ups and downs?
They both have their ups and downs. To me, it's just a different breed on both. Like that's the way I can describe it. MMA fighters are a certain way, boxing, fighters are another way. But all in all, it's still a combative sport. Yes, it's still a combative sport, and their goals are the same. It's just there's a lot of
and Chuy still gets in the cage in the ring the same way.
The same way.
He's the first one in there.
Yeah, like I said, once again, that's a technique that I created so that I can assist the officials. And a lot of people, picked it up and trying to do the same thing because California is probably one of the few that, that the inspectors actually go in the ring. And I've seen other states where I'm like, wow, they should be going in the ring because they're still, going back and forth after the bell rings and not assisting the referee.
Well, in California, between rounds in the boxing, I depend on Chuy. I'll walk up to him. I won't walk up to the fighter. I walk up to Chuy. Is everything okay? He'll tell me, hey, man, it doesn't look like he wants to fight, or he's crying to his corner. He's got a bad cut, or you know what, Ray, everything's good. And then I go by to the doctor and say, thumbs up. But I depend on him because they see between rounds what's happening in that fighter, in the trainer, the discussion amongst the trainers.
We're the like I told you before. We're like the extra in the background that people don't know what we do. But you got to remember,
But
we've
you're a
been
major important.
We've been dealing with these fighters for 3 or 4 days already before you get to see them as a referee or anybody the fans. We work with them doing neurological assessments. We make sure that they have their gloves if it's a championship fight.
Thank God they don't do the neurological on us, man.
Yeah, exactly. But we deal with these fighters. I mean, sometimes, like especially for bigger fights, we have to be out there in close to the proximity of where they're at to do any type of paperwork beforehand. So we know these fighters sometimes even more than the referee, because I've seen them since they're warming up in the locker room.
Yeah.
And I can see the way that they are, and then once the fight starts, I can see the deterioration of the fighter as well. So I'm able to identify that and mention it to the doctors, mention it to the referee. So the way we do it is we don't talk directly to the doctors. We go through the referee. That's our chain of command. So if we see something like a cut of some sort that we don't like, then we call the attention of the referee, and then you're the one that tells the doctors, check it out. But we hear everything. I mean, sometimes, we hear everything that the corner says. We hear absolutely everything, and that's why we're in there to identify those situations where they could be a danger. And we're there to assist you guys as
our eyes
referees.
and our ears. I wanted to read this quote from one of the top referees in the world, Jack Reese. This is what he said about Chuy. Ray, this is how I feel about Chuy. Chuy is one of the best inspectors we have ever had. Whenever we have a fight situation where there is bad blood between the fighters, or even just a high profile fight, I love having Chuy in the corner as my inspector. Chuy always keeps control of the corner, supports me in things that start heating up. He makes sure everyone gets in and out of there quickly, and this is between rounds, and is always part of the solution, and I'm looking for with challenges that come up. In fact, when I did the Wilder versus Fury fight, which I'm sure you remember, I specifically asked for Chuy and Ernie Martinez to be in my inspectors in the fighters' corners. That says a lot, guys. You can't get any higher than the heavyweight championship of the world, And having them there gave me a peace of mind, knowing that I wouldn't have any problems with the cornermen because they always take care of business, which allows me to stay focused on the fighters and the fight. I've had some bad experience with inspectors outside of California, which you just said, where I wish I had Chuy and my inspectors. Chuy is a model of what an inspector should be. They could all learn from Chuy, Jack Reese. That says a lot, bro. That says a lot,
Thank you, Jack. That means a lot to me. Except for spelling my name wrong.
He put
Chuy like he's chewing something instead of Chuy.
Yeah. Those guys from New York.
I appreciate that, Jack.
Yeah. So what fights stand out in your career so far? We obviously, like Andy said, we ain't gonna talk about fights coming up. We want to talk about your history of fights, which you could see here, guys.
I believe that he put one on the nose right there. Wilder Fury was probably one of the best experiences I've ever had in my career as an inspector. It was just a great atmosphere, a great storyline leading up to the event. I mean, we hadn't had heavyweight fighters fight in California in so many years, and to me, it was an honor to be chosen to be working, one of the corners. And doesn't matter what corner I'm working, I work my fights, every single fight, regardless if it's like the other night we had fights that were we call after dark, where it was after the main event. I'll work that same fight the way I work any fighter ever, and I just
and they deserve it.
They deserve it, because even when I did amateurs, I always worked it so hard because they were going to get to this point one time, professional, just like they worked their way up from amateurs. Yeah. I did the same thing. I worked my way up from amateurs and became a pro.
And let me interrupt you. Here's from Tom Taylor, our other top referee in the world. When I see Chuy in my corners, whether it's a 4-rounder or a world title fight, I'm confident that the corner is taken care of. gives me a peace of mind having him there. Props again. And I say the same thing. Again, this Neary Crazy 8, that was my title fight. You want everything to go smooth. That was a heated battle. I'm thinking it was a 6th round. They were fighting after the bell. You know what? Me personally, you don't want to lose control of a fight. But before I could even grab Neary, Chuy was already in there grabbing Crazy 8. And you know what? I'm grateful for that. Because he's on top of it, keeps them safe, not to mention help me not to look bad,
Yeah, and it's a heated fight. I mean, it's really competitive. So, them
emotions
are high, and them doing something after the bell that can cause them to get a point deduction of some sort. We try to, we're helping you out, but we're also trying to save them from any further conflict, any further confrontation. But they know, and me working with them, like I said, throughout the whole night leading up to their fight. It helps also the fighter. And a lot of people don't understand this, but us being with them in the locker room, us being with them during the licensing, during the weigh-in, they recognize our face. So there's been situations where a fighter's getting knocked out. And I know that in MMA, they have now, what they do is if a fighter gets knocked out, they have one of their corner people come in. So they have a face that they recognize so that they can calm down.
Yeah.
And in MMA, I believe, it's to help them because sometimes they get combative with the referee after they've been knocked out.
Yeah.
But in boxing, it's pretty similar. I mean, they recognize my face. I'm not the most handsome person ever, but, I've been communicating with them throughout the night, throughout the weekend. No.
Oh my God.
No.
Come on,
So
Chuy.
it helps them. It helps them calm down if they get knocked out, if they see a face that gets recognized. But that's our job. We go in there to make sure that even if they do get knocked out, that we're protecting them because they like to celebrate.
Yes,
the corner people like to come in.
I mean, weren't you going to tell me a story about an MMA incident? Which one was that?
I've had a couple of them, like I said, but it wasn't at a fight, but it was at a weigh-in. When Caleb Plant fought, I think his name is Jose Osegawi.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I think from Colombia, but he lives in San Diego. I remember at the weigh-in, I had never met Caleb Plant ever, and we were doing the weigh-in, and they were doing the face-off, and we try to leave them for a little bit to have their they got to sell their tickets, to have their moment, and they're finally, they weren't stopping the face-off, so I had to get in there and tell them, and Caleb didn't like it. He didn't like it that I told him to scoot back. I try to create some space in between myself and the.
And sometimes you got to get a little.
Yeah,
firm, right?
you guys. So I don't. My job is not to push the fighters, but I do put my body in there. I'm a big dude, so it's telltale sign. Start moving back, and we let them do their show. But Caleb didn't like it, and he pushed me, and he was angry, and I was like, hey, you need to calm down. It's over. It's done. You did your face off. It's done. Scoot back. You got to be firm with them, but respectful at the same time. Because they're at their moment. I don't want to, sometimes they're at their moment and they can throw a blow.
Yeah.
But Caleb was, he was pretty mad. And we let it go. But he was such a gentleman that the next day, the first thing he did when he came in went straight to me and apologized. Said, I'm sorry. I should never have. Oh, yeah. And after that, my respect to him because, he was just at the moment. And we got to understand that. And, myself and Mark, we've been involved in so many weigh-ins that we do have to put our body in front of people.
Those are the two faces you see at all our big wins, Chuy and Mark.
And we have a strategy. We talk about how we're going to,
in case something goes down.
If something goes down, same thing happened with Gervonta Davis and Pitbull Cruz.
Yeah.
We sometimes you can't, it's unexpected and we have to react, but we're always there not to get camera time. We're there to make sure that nothing happens before their fight.
And I've never seen any of that where you guys are trying to be showboat, but you are becoming the face of California at these big fights.
Not on purpose. I'm just doing my job. I'm just doing my job.
You're doing it right, bro. You're doing it right.
I'm there to back up. Mark during the weigh-ins. We work with each other along with with like you mentioned Ernie, and we have a team. We have a team that we take care of all these big events because we know how they're supposed to go.
And I notice when before a fight even starts, you guys have a game plan. You're going to take care of this.
Oh, yes.
You're going to take care of that. And you need to be over there. So I see that part. Yeah.
Yeah, there's stuff that happens behind the scenes that a lot of fans don't even know.
And this is why I'm interviewing.
Yeah, and we deal with the weirdest stuff sometimes before they even get into the ring. I mean, there's been situations where we have to be on our A game because something's going to happen. There's been threats of some sort. I mean, we deal with this in the background.
We would also like to thank our newest sponsor, Twitch Boxing Equipment. You can count on them to provide you with all of your boxing equipment needs. They have all major brands in stock and are ready to ship. They also have their own label, Twitch Boxing Equipment. They offer a wide variety of gloves, wraps, and all the tools needed to elevate your development. You can follow them on Instagram at Twitch Boxing Equipment, and you can also pick up some Twitch boxing gear at some of the local clubs here in the Inland Empire. We want to also thank our friends at Kelstar Roofing. Kelstar Roofing specializes in residential roofing, installing concrete roofing tiles, and composition asphalt shingles. They have been serving the Inland Empire for over 31 years. Call on Kelstar Roofing for all of your roofing needs. Thank our friends at CJ Smiles. CJ Smiles is an organization that supports families dealing with childhood cancer by providing financial support and gifts with the hope of putting a smile to children with fighting cancer. CJ Smiles started in memory of CJ Delfossi, who was diagnosed with rhabdomyosarcoma in 2019. CJ loved to laugh, tell jokes, play soccer, and video games. He had the best smile. For 2.5 years, he battled cancer with chemotherapy, radiation, multiple procedures, extensive hospital stays, and had relapsed twice. CJ gained his angel wings at the age of 10 years old. This sponsor, when it came in, it pulled some heartstrings, I have to admit. I'm an oncology nurse, and this one hit home. So again, it pulled my heartstrings, and I really want to thank you guys for your support and what you do in the community.
I don't know if you could answer this, and if you don't want to answer it, you don't have to. I'm not asking for names, but have you caught any bad raps? Have you caught any, what is the adrenaline? Sometimes they can't.
There's been situations where we have caught, bad cut medicine that we call. We only allow certain types of cut medicine. And
the name of that particular, is it Adrenaline 101?
It's Adrenaline 1,000 milligrams. Yeah.
Okay. Can it be open prior or?
So it's not supposed to, but we do allow in certain occasions because it is expensive. Adrenaline 1,000 is expensive, and we do expect a new bottle every time. There's been situations where they're able to pretty much prove to us that it is a new bottle. They just use one Q-tip of some sort, because that's how they put it. But we prefer a brand new bottle if possible. And we have, because certain sports, like for example, Muay Thai, they allow Tiger Bomb in their country, but it's not allowed here in our country, or actually I'm speaking for California. So there's been situations where we had Thai fighters that we have to, let them know, hey. But nothing major that, made the news, of course.
Yeah.
But, we do, once again, it's a cultural difference. That's what I call it. Mm-hmm. When the hand wraps are done wrong, that they in other countries they're allowed to do.
Because tape can only go in a certain way, right?
So we, depending on the size of the hand, of course, like my hand is huge. So, of course, my tape would start about an inch behind the knuckles. And I usually use my finger as a guide. And so I would start the tape behind my finger. So from here back, that's where I start the tape. And then it can't go under pretty much where this bend is at right here, where my hand bends, from there back as well.
And all our inspectors are
trained
supposed to know this?
Yes, they all know that. We have, guidelines that we follow.
Yeah.
Once again, they can only use certain tape. They can only use certain gauze. A lot of
that's safety, guys.
Yeah,
that's safety.
Because we have a measured amount that they're allowed to use. So a lot of people or trainers from other countries, they bring the gauze that's a 4-inch gauze already, and they want to use that as the padding for the knuckles. Yeah. So we don't allow them. We make them make their padding out of regular 2-inch gauze. It's just easier to keep track of how much amount they're using. Same with the tape. They usually use the 1-inch tape. Most of the trainers, that's what they like to wrap with. but they're allowed to use up to 1.5 inches. So there's different tapes, what we call medical tapes. It has to be medical tapes, and whenever there's a different type of tape that we've never seen, we don't let them use it, and they have to get it approved by the commission.
And I noticed that you guys tape the gloves, right?
Yes. So
Because why?
we keep possession of the gloves until they put them on, and we also tape our own gloves because the moment that we tape them,
What's that called?
it's called skinning.
Skinning.
So a lot of old school trainers, they use that technique, skinning, to tighten up the front of the glove, just for a harder glove. So when they're tying the gloves, we have possession of the gloves. We give the trainer the gloves, and they put it in front. They put them on in front of us. And then when they do the tying of the laces, we make sure we always keep the laces on the top. And it's something that we started because we were starting to see that when the lace was tied on the bottom of the hand, when they were punching, it usually, because there's a knot there, it was a little bigger there, so it would sometimes create cuts. So now we do the outside on top of the glove.
That's how strict they are here in California, guys.
Yeah, and if they do it and they do it on the bottom, we make them take them off and start over.
And the MMA guys, how does that work?
So MMA is a little different because the gloves are only like 4 ounces.
Yeah.
So it's literally, they're punching with knuckles.
And you guys make sure their fingernails are cut, right?
So in the back room, we make sure that their fingernails, both their toes and their hands.
That's right. Totally.
And they're not allowed to use certain equipment. You know, they can't use like knee protectors. It has to be like a custom fit neoprene. So they can use those, but we have to be approved, of course, by the commission.
Same with the gloves?
Same with the gloves. The gloves are usually 4 ounces. I mean, they're literally punching with nothing.
Yeah,
but I mean, there's been fights where some of the fighters, they don't even want to wrap. They just put the glove on, and they could.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
So that's on them, you know, if they want to wrap. So we just put a piece of tape with our signature on it because we sign all the wraps.
Yes.
We're there since they start making their padding. We make sure they lay out all their tape, their gauze that they're going to use. We make sure that when they're wrapping, that there has to be an inspector there. There has to be an inspector there. And once they wrap, that's it. They're what we call them on lockdown. Yeah. If they need to use the restroom, they have to let us know, and we escort them to the restroom, and we have to be in there. I mean, sometimes it sucks, but we have to be in there because now we're not watching out for his safety. We're watching out for the safety of the other fighter. Yeah. And also, especially for championship fights, it's really important that you're there all the time with the gloves, with the wraps, and also most of the time, 99% of the time, the other team can observe when they wrap the hands and when they put the gloves on.
Do you think that started from the Margarito?
Possibly. I'm post Margaritos, and I learned all the rules, you know, after that happened. But I believe that's probably one of the biggest reasons. Because sometimes, I kid you not, I mean, we do see some you know, gauze that look suspicious, and we're like, you know, we have the right to just say, nope, you can't use it, put it away, or throw it away.
And as far as boxing, when there's a title fight, you guys thoroughly check these gloves, right?
Oh yeah, we do. We could do a glove selection at the weigh-in. Yeah. So at the weigh-in, after they weigh in, we got to make sure they weigh in first because there's no fight until they weigh in. Yeah. We do a glove selection. So here in the state of California, it's recommended that if it's a championship fight, that each fighter brings at least 3 pairs of identical gloves. So the reason being is because they're able to pick the best glove that fits on their left and their best one that fits on the right. And out of the other pairs, we keep, you know, one ringside in case something happens. And when I say identical, the reason we ask for identical is because at any time if the glove rips during the fight,
which it has happened,
you know, we want to replace the glove with the same glove, especially for TV. Yeah. You don't want to all of a sudden have a Grant and an Everlast on one hand. It's just not fair. So that's why for a championship fight, we always recommend that they bring at least 3 pairs and they're able to pick their number 1 pair from those 3 sets.
And these gloves that have to be state approved, right?
So all the gloves that are allowed to be used in a championship fight are approved. And Mark and myself, actually, you know, I helped them several times in approving gloves. So Mark Ralia, he's the one that approves all the gloves that are used here in California. Now, for a championship fight, we recommend that the glove has at least been used in fights for at least a year or two before they can be used in a championship fight. So there's a list of gloves on our website at the California State Athletic Commission of the gloves that are approved here in California. And pretty much, once again, if those gloves are approved here in California, they're pretty much approved all over the world. Because we get the glove, we rip it open, we make sure that the specs that they send us match with what's inside the glove. So, we want to make sure that they always have the consistency of the when they make the glove. And it happens when sometimes there's an older model of a glove that gets used now, you can see the difference. And we discard those. But it's a pretty thorough process that we go through. We make sure that these gloves are packaged, that haven't been manipulated, that they come straight from the whoever made it. And we make sure that it gets done the right way.
Cool. So Chuy, what's this I hear that you got a little business going?
Yeah.
You're in the coffee business, huh?
So I've been in construction my whole life.
Yeah.
And I believe that I'm at the point in my life where I don't think my age and my body's helping me, doing this kind of work. It's hard. As you can see, my father was a carpenter. He framed houses, his whole life, and I learned, the trade from him, and I love it. I loved it.
And real quick, guys, this is a tribute to Chuy's father, and that's awesome. I'm not going to make it about me, but I wasn't close to my dad or my mom, but I hope my sons do something like this for me,
Yeah, it's still hard. Now that you mentioned it, it's still hard to not have him here because he was my best friend. He was my best friend, and he was my...
That's a tearjerker in itself.
Yeah, right? and I try not to get into that stage, and it's hard sometimes because I'm still, just seeing him. It's hard for me because he was my biggest role model.
Yeah.
And that's the reason I'm doing my business, is because we work, I'm gonna say our asses off working construction. It ain't easy work. It's hard work, jackhammering, just being out in the heat. But it taught me a lot of values. My dad came from Mexico illegally, along with my mom, and they had nothing. They came here with
What part of Mexico?
So my dad was born in Michoacan, but he was raised in a town called Ocotlan, Jalisco. That's where my family's at right now. That's where my family lives.
Mom as well?
No. So my mom, the same. She was born in Mazatlan, Sinaloa, but she was raised in Mexicali. And, so we have from different types of states, but when my dad came here from Mexico, he came here with nothing. And I think this is a good... something good that I learned from my dad was work hard for what you want. I honestly...
You're being the lead inspector. That's proof right there, brother.
And I'm going to be honest with you. I don't have... after high school, I didn't follow up with going to college. I loved working construction. And it made me good money. It's a good living. But it does take a toll on your body.
Yeah.
And when... all of a sudden I was like, you know what? I want to do something different. I want to do something for myself, because I'm at that point in my life where I'm not getting any younger, and I don't want to be later on in life saying, why didn't I try it? I've always wanted to do a business. I just didn't know what. So one more than something that I love, and I know a lot of people love, is coffee. So I came up with this idea about opening up a coffee house, and I'm in plan check right now. Hopefully by the...
What does that mean?
So I submitted all my plans of all my what's called tenant improvements.
Yeah.
So make sure...
the ball's rolling.
Oh yeah, it's rolling. Yeah, it's rolling. I'm more that way than this way. But I started it, and it's called Aroma de Café. And hopefully in end of April of 2023, I should be opening up, depending on how fast they approve my plans.
Yeah. And it will be in what city?
Colton, California. So,
and you know what, guys? I'm a big supporter. Support your local businesses. In San Bernardino, wherever you're at in San Bernardino, this is a coffee shop. Come on, support. Talk boxing with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm going to have some stuff in there, that represent who I am.
Yeah.
and who my father was.
That'd be a great icebreaker. And
Oh yeah,
open, you know, sit down
and
just
that's
talk.
like I said, once again, that's what I wanted to do. My dad came here, and my mom came here with nothing.
The wife got your back on it?
Oh, my wife got my bag way back. No, just kidding. She has it. But no, it's something that I created on my own, and hopefully it's something that my daughters can you know, use as a way to learn about business.
They see dad doing it.
Yes,
Sure.
and you know, just have something for them as well. You know, that's for them more than anything. It's not for me. It's for them. It's you know, something that they can run hopefully in the future and learn business, learn you know, get an education in some sort, because it's not easy. It's not easy out here, especially nowadays. It's harder for these kids that are growing up right now.
Everything's against them, bro.
Oh yeah, everything. But yeah, I mean, it's something that I want to do for a while, and finally I put my heart into it, and I'm pretty much there. You know,
So what's the name of it again?
It's called Aroma de Café.
Tell the fans.
It's called Aroma de Café, and it's going to be in Colton, California, right off of La Cadena.
And you know what? When it opens, I will definitely say it on my podcast, guys. We got to support our local community. We got to support. Even if you live in the San Bernardino area, even if you live out in LA, come out and visit, man. Come out and visit. Wouldn't that be cool to have a cup of coffee and talk boxing and MMA with our lead inspector? With that, Chuy, we're going to close up. I appreciate you. You know what? I got one more question real quick. And I hope you answer this right. Who do you think's the coolest referee, bro?
Man,
Should I stand up real quick, guys?
that's a tough one.
What? Chuy.
How many do we have? I don't even know.
I'm joking, guys.
I think all our officials are great here in California.
right.
They're
That's
all all hard workers. I mean, we have awesome officials. I mean,
From our Jack Reese
all the way to our Ivan or Rudy. I mean,
Rudy.
They're okay, but they're getting there. No, but we have honestly the best officials in the world. That's what my opinion. And like we said before, sometimes when I see fights in other countries, I'm like, I wish we were officiating the event. But yeah, I mean, just everybody's great here in California. All our inspectors are hard workers. I mean, we all learn from each other. And I think that's one that I want to hit. When I first started, I had an inspector, and you know him. His name's Larry Irvin. Yeah. Larry Irvin has been with us for many, many years.
Oh my God.
When Larry took me as a trainee, he was good. I mean, he's military, so I did do some of the Explorer programs. So I did some of the Explorer training. We went to the Camp Pendleton Marine Base and we did some training. So I was kind of used to the yelling and screaming, but that was Larry.
Yeah.
So when I met Larry, I did a show. That's when I first started doing professional inspector. We had a show at the Commerce Casino. It was a MMA show, and it was like 18 fights. And I was like, whoa.
Long nights, huh?
So those were long nights, but Larry was working with me, and I said, what do I got to do? He says, what are you going to do? He said, you're going to do everything today. And I said, okay. He says, you're working every single fight. We're going to get them wrapped all together right now, and then as they walk out, you're going to walk out with them. You're going to bring them back. I'm going to give you the next fighter. So one night I walked out like 18 fights. And I was like, whoa, but I learned so much that night because I was let loose. Like I was told, just get it done.
Threw in the lion's den, no?
So because I do a lot of help Mark with a lot of the training, especially with the new inspectors, I tell them, learn a little bit from everybody. And I think that's not just in inspector, that's just in life in general.
Yeah.
You know, we got to learn from each other. And I believe that's the best way to go at life to succeed is don't be so like arrogant and just want to be yourself and try to, you know, create your own style and try to force it on people. I think you should learn from others, and it gets you a long way. And that's what I did. I saw the things that I didn't want to do from certain people, and I saw the things that I wanted to do, and I just created my own little system. And so far, it's helped. You know, it's helped me be successful. I believe successful as an inspector.
Well, with that said, guys, I just want to thank you again, Chuy. Now the fans know what Chuy's about, where he grew up, what's his skills. Now you know him. So I just want to thank you again, Chuy, for coming on.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me. It's an honor.
Please, guys, go on YouTube, subscribe to Third Man in the Ring. And thank you and God bless, guys.